everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm very excited to have my first special guest of the Loop StoryTime episode, podcast, Loop live stream extravaganza, if you will. With me, I have Ashton Roberson, or Spaceship Earth, based out of Denver. Ashton, how are you doing today, man?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for having me on, man.
Oh, of course, man. This has been great. I'm excited to be able to get to know you a little bit more. You and I have been chatting on and off for a few weeks about music and about COVID and about life, and so I'm excited to be able to just kind of BS with you a little bit more. So tell us about yourself. Tell us about Spaceship Earth. Tell us about what you've been doing, what you got going on.
Well, so Spaceship Earth is a solo electronic music project I started first as a band in like 2012, 2013, and it evolved into a solo project. And I essentially do live electric guitar over my own music I produced, which I make with keyboards and beat pads and stuff like that. And yeah, I just actually released a new song today, so I'm super stoked about that. Revolution just came out today. And I've just been steady making music all quarantine.
That's it, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna go listen to the tune after we're done with this one. I've been following that all week, so I'm super excited to get to listen to it.
Heck yeah.
So you said that this started as a full band in 2012, 2013. Was it the same kind of Jamtronica at the time? What was that project? What did that project
Similar.
like?
I was lead singer as well at that point, and I had like started the band as my own solo project to like have I was in bands with other guitar players and other singers, and there was always a lot of differences, so I wanted my own kind of band. And we just had a drummer and a bass player, and I would write every song, and I would like loop Ableton clips, but it was quite a bit of a different sound.
Yeah. And so I first saw you on Rocky Mountain Virtual. Shout out to Alyssa and Sarah for putting that.
Yes.
Because that's Rocky Mountain's how I got my start doing my looping set. And so I remember the first time we saw you, I was like, it was vibe. Like that was the kind of thought that I had. It was just like, man, this vibe, it's killer, because I'm all about the Jamtronica stuff, and it was spacey, hence the name. It was tasty, it was funky, it was jammy, it was all the stuff that you really kind of want. And so it's cool to be able to hear that it started as a full band project, but I definitely get that steering hands on the wheel.
Yep.
And so, like, what did you get into producing? Because there's learning music, and then there's the bleeps and the bloops, and those are those are two completely separate animals. You can be the greatest songwriter, but if you don't understand synthesizers, you're kind of SOL. So tell me a little bit about that.
And that's a whole conversation, because like it's been a learning curve for me being a musician, turning into a production synthesis sound designer. But essentially I started going to music festivals in like 2011, 2012 too, and I saw bands like Papadosio and producers like Future Primitive and Psilocybin did a collab with Mike Rempel from Lotus, and I saw all these like fusions of guitar and electronica on stage. Papadosio used Ableton, and that sparked like, ooh, maybe I could do this. I was like, oh, maybe I'll start a side project that's like a DJ project. But it kind of happened organically, where like the drummer, like such a good dude, he was more of like a metal style drummer, and it's like it wasn't dynamic enough for what I wanted to go for, and I just started making my own beats. I could play drums set before all of that, which kind of like gave me the concept of what the drum set should be doing.
Yeah.
But
that's funny that you mentioned Papadosio. That was actually my introduction into this whole scene. I was a like ska head all through high school, and for a long time honestly didn't go to a ton of live music. It's just I'd been playing music my entire life, but I was like, live music, who has the time or money? And my friends dragged me to Papadosio Sun Squabby back in 2017.
Wow.
And I was just like, that same kind of thing. You're like, what is is this, man? And
Right.
the use of electronics, the use of live instruments, and that's one of the things that I love about what your project is, where it is the multi-instrumental capacity. You do have the keys, you do have the guitar, you do have the visuals, you do have the wubs, you do have the synths, you do like it creates a full kind of package, but it's not in the same realm
Yeah.
of what the other people are doing, because there are producers, there are DJs that have similar avenues, but yours sticks out a little bit more to me just in the outer space like vibe that it gives.
Totally.
And that's, I think that's a huge part for any musician, is to be able to be listened to and to be able to go, okay, that's this person versus that person, instead of just like, oh, it's a DJ. And I think that like good on you for having that capability. So
Thank you.
so when do like, I'm curious, because I say this about being a saxophone player, I say this about horn players on stage, but when did you start getting involved in instrumental music? Because that, you said that's kind of the foundation of this project. It wasn't I want to make beats and then I'm going to learn guitar on top of it. I'm a guitar player, I'm a keyboard player. Well, hey, why not throw some wubs underneath it?
Yep, exactly. And I've met so many producers who it's the opposite process, so it's pretty interesting. But for me, it all started in like 7th and 8th grade when my best friend showed me how to play guitar, and he also signed me up for marching band that summer. So I was in band. I was in marching band and symphonic band for like 5 years. And
playing guitar, or
no, I played euphonium and baritone.
Oh, nice.
And guitar at my house.
Nice. I was this close to being a baritone player.
Really?
When I switched from saxophone to trumpet, I wanted to do drum corps. I'm a diehard marching band. I did my forever, and so I was like, it was between trumpet and baritone, and my godmother was like, trumpet plays higher and better notes, and I was like, sold.
Totally.
So when you were in high school, had you moved to Colorado by that point, or did you move to Colorado?
Nope, I just moved to Colorado in 2019.
Oh, so you're fresh. Yeah. You're fresh new to the area, so welcome.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, well, cool, man. So marching band and symphonic band and guitar, and then so 2011. What was was Spaceship Earth the name of the original project that you were doing?
In 2012, it was, yeah.
Okay, cool. And then it just kind of stuck there and evolved.
Yeah, I like had the name and then decided to keep it.
I mean, that's what it. If you got something that works, I don't reinvent the wheel, or I try not to.
True.
So, well, cool. So like, with your music that you're making now, where do you kind of find your influences? Who are you listening to that you go, okay, I can do that. I can, like, where do you draw your influences from?
It's kind of all over the place, to be honest, especially coming from more of a rock band background. I listen to a lot of bands, anyone from, Muse is maybe one of my bigger influences, nice. Papa Dozy for sure, but I listen to like a lot of Radiohead, a lot of like indie music, and then people like Spangle, there's some fringe electronic artists I want to call out, like Quanta and Land Switcher. Like there's these like squishy like sounds, that stuff. But a lot of my inspiration comes from reggae, really.
Nice.
I love how reggae is kind of like, it's positive, but it's also anti-establishment. It's had this like kind of political thing it's had, and I've gravitated towards that over the last 2 years, like with all the protests and stuff,
Absolutely.
As like a foundation.
Yeah. I had the opportunity to see Natalie Rise last year.
Oh my God, she's like my favorite.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I got to see her at the Mission Ballroom, and it's just that same like you're just kind of saying, it's political. It's politically driven in with a positive spin on it. So you're you're not getting the Ramones. You're not getting like, I'm going to take down the Bush regime with
Exactly.
guitar and rock and bass, but you're getting like, I'm going to shed some light on some darkness in a way that is palpable for a lot more people.
Exactly though.
And I was talking to a friend the other day, where it's like he said we were listening to a song and he said it sounded like beach country. Like, and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's just reggae. Like,
Yep.
if you take a country song and put it on the beach, you have reggae.
Beach reggae.
Yeah, it's great.
Or beach country.
Beach
That's
country.
So
Now that's awesome. So you and I have been in conversations about making some music together. For those tuning in, keep your eyes and ears peeled. Coming in future dates. Who are some other artists that you've had the opportunity to work with over the years, if you have collaborated or had writing partners and things like that?
It's like I've just started to do some collaborations. It's ever since it's been a solo project, I've kind of like tried to find my own sound along the way. But I've got a collab with this vocalist, Natalie Lane. That's really cool. It's this drum and bass song that we're working on. It's probably gonna be my next single.
Okay.
And I have one of my favorite collabs is with Tau Tempo. It's on my last album. It's like the third or fourth track. And being able to work with like other producers has been really fun. My homie Sector Z from Detroit, we always have a lot of fun in the studio. It's so fun to work with people like who are other producers as well. And then that's why I love reaching out to people like you who are instrumentalists, that it's like, because sometimes the full producer collab is like a lot.
Yeah.
But working with a vocalist or an instrumentalist, it's like kind of like adding to the band.
Yeah. Well, and it with producers, and I am dipping my toes in production. Like if there is a surface of production, I'm like scratching 6 feet above it. Like I've touched it. I'm like I've pressed a button on my keyboard and I'm like, ooh, sub bass. I'm a producer now, which is like so ridiculous, because the sound design, and I think for the layman, and being an instrumentalist growing up outside of the electronic scene and being surrounded by a lot of people who aren't in it, you don't realize how much work it is. And for every big bass drop and for every high free, like how much time and how many knobs and how many twists and turns and times you just listen to what, and you've adjusted 50,000 things and it sounds the same. And that I think is so when you're collaborating with other producers, you have this limitless capability of the sounds that you can make. But if you're working with a instrumentalist or a vocalist or a drummer or someone who plays an instrument, one sound you're going for. There's one. I'm going to play a saxophone and it's going to sound like a saxophone. I'm going to play a trumpet. It's going to sound like a trumpet. You can all manipulate that a million ways, but at the core of it, it's play saxophone, get a saxophone. That's reasons I like, because for my life, I've been playing a saxophone that sounds like a saxophone. And who was I forgot who I was talking to the other day, or I watched a video and it was an old school video of someone messing with the synthesizer, and he goes, my entire life of writing music, I've been stuck to natural sounds. I've had these melodies in my head, but I've never been able to write the music that I hear in my head. And so now he starts manipulating old school synths, old school oscillators, and then he's like, this is the sound that I actually want. This is the sound that I hear in my brain. I'm able to make that now when I hadn't been. This was back in like 75 when they're looking at the synthesizers that take up 3 rooms and have 10,000 cables coming out of them. So it's crazy. It's fun.
That blows my mind. And that's like a big balance I'm trying to find with a project of like sound design and instrumentalist, because so much of the psychedelic bass world, the dubstep scene and stuff is so sound designy, and there's not a lot of melodic or instrumental content that to me like, I get a little bored with it sometimes, even if it's like the heaviest, most exciting song. Like, my mind loves like the skill set that it takes to be an instrumentalist. It's like anyone can kind of like click around and make cool sounds, but the marriage of the two and the harmony of like a skilled player with some skilled sound design, I think, is like maybe like the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I like. Well, and the story arc of music over the past decade and a half, I think, has been really interesting
Yeah,
because you had.
me too.
I mean, you've got. And from the scene of music that I've been a fan of, I grew up listening to Blink-182, Linkin Park, Sum 41, things of that nature. Then found ska, but like pop music around 2007 started going very heavy production,
Yep.
very little instrumentalist. It was a singer and a producer, and they made a track, and it was a banger, and it was on top 40, and you heard it all the time. And then I blame Bruno Mars and Justin Timberlake because they, about 2014, they started touring with full bands again. They started taking, like, Justin Timberlake started touring with the Tennessee Kids and took what I'm bringing sexy back, but to a 9-person band.
Wow.
And he had a full horn section on stage. And then Bruno Mars came out and started doing pop music with a 7-person or with an 8-person band. And so people started going, ooh, instruments are back. I want to watch talent now. I don't just want to watch a diva. I don't just want to watch a singular person. I want to see a product. And so when that started coming and you started seeing, and like off mainstream music, Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats came out and started doing full band stuff. And then with, Grizz, Dominic Lawley, when they started bringing in instrumentalists into the electronic scene, and Odessa brought in the drum line, and Papadosio, and full band Spangle, and anytime that you start seeing, and I think there's a fine line you draw when you start incorporating that in electronic music, because my belief with electronic music production, and you tell me, and I'd be curious because you're actually doing it. I'm just the guy that's out there going, woo, bass music, but you're the one that's actually making it. When in the arrangement process, if you're going to have an instrumentalist be on stage, their part needs to be important. Because with electronic, you can write every part in. You don't need anyone. And I've seen a few projects over the years that it's like, you just wanted to say that you had 5 people on stage with you. You didn't need a drummer. You didn't need a guitar player. You didn't need 4 horns. You just wanted to say, look at what I was able to do, which is fine. Do it. Not my cup of tea as an instrumentalist. And do you see that? Do you feel that? Do you see that? Do you disagree? Do you agree?
No, I agree. It's like, as a live guitar player over electronic project, I see some people who do it as a gimmick, or it's just like, like an idea, like maybe we should add some guitar live, not like it's not so refined. Not that I think that's not cool or anything, but for me, what I'm doing is like, I have 2 mastered versions of the song, so when I'm playing live, you're hearing a master without the guitar, and like without, in certain sections are pulled, so I can actually play the part. And like I'll leave solo sections, and it's like parts, like for our collab, like I can have multiple versions so that your solo's pulled and you can come do it live. I could like loop it, and we could like mash another song into it and like extend it totally and like jam back and forth live. That's where
you're tugging at my heartstrings right now. I'm getting all excited and goosebumpy.
Here we go.
That's because I think there is nothing more. It separates my brain from the show, and I see this a ton with drummers, and I see this where producers they'll program, like some producers will program a drum and a kick and a snare, just because you want that fat kick, you want the fat snare on it, and then the drummer's just going to town behind, and you get to watch that.
Right.
But then you have producers who have they've produced a drum track and then have a drummer, and you hear the track, and the drummer's over there doing their own thing. You're like, And to the average festival head, to the average consumer, they're like, "Woo, drummer!" But to a person,
Totally.
if you've had that switch in your brain, you're like, "That's not what I'm hearing right now."
Yep.
Or that is way too clear of a sound for what I'm watching you do right now. And so
Exactly.
it's like you said. I think the best way you described it is the marriage between the two. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm a producer that it would be fun to play guitar. I'm a guitar
Right.
player that'd be fun to play wubs on it. It's I need to incorporate this additional style of music organically in it because I mean, what's the thing from Jurassic Park? You son of a bitch! Just because you thought you could doesn't mean, or just because you could do it didn't mean you should do it. And that's music in general. That can be electronic music. I play like my main
So true.
project's a funk band, and we've gone into the studio, and the guys, the recording artist, is like, "Yeah, we need to cut a lot of this out, just because you can put all these notes in here." Does not mean that on the album that will sound good.
Absolutely.
So
I've learned a lot as a producer too, like how like your how do I want to say this? It's like almost like a mixing thing. Like it's like if you have too much of this frequency spectrum filled up, it gets muddy in certain areas, or you can really like over dominate like a phrase or a section, you know.
yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm learning with my looping, since
Yes.
since the timbre of my instrument is the same, and I'm looping
Yeah.
a saxophone. I need to figure out what filters am I putting on certain chords, and what bass parts am I putting on, or what effects am I putting on the same sound, so that when it's all being played, you can hear harmony, melody, bass, percussion, and it's not just saxophone.
Yep, exactly.
So I mean, and that's the art. That's why the big dogs make the money that they make, and that's why they sell out the shows that they do, because it's that marriage that it's not the production, it's not the show, it's this whole combination. That's why I love electronic music, because it's not just a performer. It's not just a light show. It's not just a visual show. It's not just wubs. It's this. You go and listen to the music, but you go for the full experience that producer was able to create. And
Absolutely. I think that's what it's all about, like creating immersive environments, like musically, sonically, but also like things I learned from bands like Papadozio is like your environment can be key too, to like really, you know, it's like the feng shui of the venue or something, like having some live painters, like some, you know, people who are dancing alongside you, and like live instrumentalists, like that stuff's so dope.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean that's just the scene, man. That's people want to. You don't go to a music festival, the modern music festival, the jam band, or the Jamtronica music festivals, for just like, I want to go see this band. No one. People will buy tickets to festivals. Like my first music festival was Arise, and halfway through it, I was just like, "Yep, this field, the sunset, the bands, the friends, the
exactly."
You stepped into this magical world where the rules were different. There was no judgment. There was no. It was freedom. The artists were able to make the art that they wanted to make. Musicians were able to make the music that they wanted. You wanted to wear a funky dress, you could wear a funky dress. You wanted to walk around like it was freedom. It was true, unadulterated freedom, and I loved it. I loved it.
Oh, first time I ever wore a long skirt was at a festival.
There you go, man. I bet it was wildly freeing.
It was. I was like, wow, and like I don't know, like I don't rock them all the time, but at a festival I can. There's aren't like gender roles go out the window. Just
freedom.
The labels and like the limitations we place on ourselves in normal society, you know. And it's like the festival I kind of think is like it's one like micro reality, and we're like practicing like new societies and new realities in these little micro worlds. And as an artist, I feel like responsible for to like create like a good reality for like the future people, but also like our little just middle micro event. Like I hope people are having a good time and like leave the event like hopefully healthier and like thinking
Yeah,
little differently.
absolutely, man. I love it is a microbe, and it is
Right.
but like the immersive experience, top to bottom of I like you step in and norms are gone. Like
Yeah.
I was at a full moon festival in Phoenix, Arizona, and there was a guy. It was like one of the late night. It's like 3 a.m, and there's one guy over in the corner, and he's dressed up like a shaman Buzz Lightyear. I mean, it is like full out garb, but neon lights all on, and he has a staff, and just for like 2 hours, just kind of rocking back and forth. And you sat there, and you're like, man, that guy's crazy. And then for a second, you're like, that's probably like a seventh grade history teacher that just once a month, once or twice a
Yep.
month, he gets to strip off the skin and let that inner lizard come out and just go be weird in a community that fully accepts it. That fully like,
Exactly.
it's not like, what is that guy wearing? It's like, yeah, I where did you get that? And I want to get that
Exactly.
because it's like you can leave. You can like I don't know, festivals, those experiences. It's almost like a system, like a Control Alt Delete for a computer, where it's like you can get
It
so
is.
tied up in society and the societal norms of what you have to be, what you have to do, what you have to try to achieve, and then you go there and it's like, yeah, no, none of that matters.
Nope.
Let's listen to some let's listen to some good music. Let's hang out with some friends. Let's have a good time.
Yes.
I don't know. I love it.
No,
So
that's what got me into the festival culture over just going like being in the band world.
yeah, because like I love going to the Ogden. I've seen phenomenal shows at the Ogden.
Yep.
I've seen phenomenal shows at major, uh,
Exactly.
every major venue in Colorado. But it's something about the music. It's something about, and like you said, it's the responsibility of the artist. Where
Yeah.
I think Russ Liquid opening for Pretty Lights in 2017 said, "I am here to sonically lubricate you for the next act."
Yep.
And he didn't walk out going, "I'm going to throw some bangers down. What's up?" He walked out. He knew his responsibility was to prime every single person so that when Pretty Lights came out, there was no shock. There was no warm up. Pretty Lights could come out and throw down. And
Wow.
he knew his responsibility. I mean, San Holo, Rowdy
I love
Town.
that.
Like
Ooh, I love Sonolo.
like exactly with that guitar and the electronic stuff. San Holo opened for Big
Yes.
G back in 2018,
Yeah.
20, the first 3D Rowdy Town, and San Holo crushed it. And we're like, okay, what's next? And Big Gigantic came out, and I was in tears in the first 5 minutes. It's just
Wow.
like, okay, you like, there's no, okay, guys, how's it going? We're gonna start this off. It's just like they started it within the first 30 seconds. There was just face melt, and you're like, okay, we're here.
That's
Here's
one
the
thing I've really found, like the festival curators can be such a key element to the vibe of the night, because it's like who, like, you don't really want Big Gigantic before Sound Holo because it's too much energy. I mean, you could, but it's like maybe it would take away from the vibe. Like reversing that and going Sound Holo into Big Gigantic can really make a whole crowd's evening just like that.
hmm Well,
I, you know,
and yeah, it's that design of, and again like the responsibilities of the players, because I believe in the school of thought of, every show you show up and play like a headliner, because
yeah,
especially as an up and coming artist, as an up and coming band, you want to set that precedent for people to go, oh, that's a person I could see on the main stage.
yeah,
Because Red Rocks, Red Rocks is the Parthenon of live music,
yeah,
and when you see an opening set at Red Rocks, it's usually pretty good.
yep,
But the production level from opening set or direct support
yeah,
to headliner, you go, okay, how does one get from here to here?
exactly,
I mean, $1 million. That's how. Like,
totally.
But yeah, I
It's
don't
an
know.
interesting thing.
Yeah, it's great.
Like,
Um,
I don't know. It's like I've opened for some people. It's like I've had to find this balance of like sometimes I'll be like the heavier project. Like I've opened for Emancipator a few times, and I had to
okay.
like the first time I was like I felt like I was maybe I tried to chill it out too much,
Mm,
and then I realized like yo like they booked me for me, and then the second time I like went for it a little more, and they like Emancipator loved that. I didn't go for it all the way though, and like it's like having like a blend of like humility and like just situational awareness like is key like if you ever want to be the emancipator if you're it's like if you're and there's difference opening for each group like because it's
hmm.
like with my live guitar it's like I open for emancipator and then like the next week open for like a heavy dubstep artist
Interesting.
so it's like learning to be flexible and also learning to be like not too flexible like not just like all right I'm gonna completely abandon what I do.
Yeah, but I think an important thing is as an artist the ability to be flexible
Exactly.
because of your capability. You can chill it out and you can do the low. You can do the low tempo, chill
Exactly.
yoga set if you may. And
Yep.
then someone's like, "Hey, we got Tipper playing in like an hour. We need people to start getting rowdy. Can you come in
Right.
here?" And you're just like, "Yeah, whatever." People and like because if you don't want to be in a position as an artist where you pigeonhole yourself, where you're like, I have this, and we all are at that spot as artists where we only have so much content. But as you
Totally.
develop it, and as you
Right.
being able to have the creativity to expand from an emancipator opener to heavy dubstep, that it all is organic to your process,
Right.
but still works for what the audience is going for and for what the curator is going for.
It's fun like just I mean for me I think I'm just a big music fan and I love creating all the different moods of music so like for me making a down tempo song is just as fun as writing like a trance or like a hype song it's
Mm-hmm.
I I don't maybe I'm just me I can't help it a lot of people like a specific genre and want to do that all the time but I just like have an eclectic taste and that's really like worked out for me.
I mean, yeah, you were saying you listen to a ton of like Radiohead to Schbongle to the squishy stuff to the
Yep.
Papadosio to the metal. Like, yeah,
Yep.
eclectic is a good kind of way to describe it because it's what helps you make the music that you make. It is why
It's
no
so
one
true.
goes. It's why people aren't going Spaceship Earth. Oh, is that the guy that sounds like? Oh, is that the guy? Because
Yes.
no one's you. No one has the listening that you have had and experiences you have had and the artistic creativity that you have had to be able to make the music that you make. And that I don't know, that's it's cool for anyone. It's cool that you're able to do that. So
Right. No, that's why I love music, to be honest. Like, because every musician comes from a different background, and every story is different, and it's not like this so competitive in environment like business. It's like not like BP versus Shell on the corner. It's like Rising Appalachia's playing around the corner, and we got Tipper over here, and then we got like a meditation thing over here, and then like maybe you and I will play. It's like music is so co-creative and like community based that I just even if I weren't in like the industry itself, I would just be in the same mindset.
yeah, and that I think you just kind of nailed like it's not music used to be a competitive thing and there used to be a lot of rivalries and it used to be a lot of egos and it used to be a lot of
Yeah,
other things and unfortunately with that you created a lot of very or not you but the
totally.
industry created a lot of very unhealthy habits and a lot of very unhealthy artists that were used as product placers. They were used as profit
Right.
margins. They became a product of a label. And with modern jam band music, with modern jamtronica, with modern, I mean, and I'll say festival bands because like
Totally.
Your stuff that you hear on like 93.3 Alice 105.9. That's a different genre, which is in its own right that people appreciate.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with it. Respect to the people who do that. Respect to the producers that make it. Respect to the artists that do it. But in the lower tier yet bigger hustle, the more grassroots origins of music, because I mean, many of those festivals, they're not on label, or many of the festival bands aren't on labels. Many of the festivals are just
so true.
You, me, Joe Schmo, some people who just
right
got good, made some good vibes, and wanted to have fun. And there's no room for egos. There's no room for assholes in that.
And that's what convinced me to get fully involved in like the electronic and like the festival scene and the Jamtronica scene. Like the band world doesn't do that stuff. You know, like I was playing in venues and basements and stuff, and that was cool, but
that's
just
awesome.
The sense of community at a festival, like just meeting people, like to me, like I came out of my shell like socially as well. Like just yeah, I think festivals still, like the future of festivals are gonna help like humanity. So it just has helped me so much.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And it's as it becomes more, I mean, mainstream. Like you have your massive ones, you have your Bonnaroos, you have the ones that are your Coachellas, and that's different to a degree.
Totally.
It's still such a mainstream produced.
Exactly.
And versus your Arises, your summer camps, your Okeechobes, your things like that have still high quality production, but it's so much more. What's the word I'm trying to think of? It's so much more like.
It's like I feel like it's like there's like the big festivals have like width, but like the grassroots festivals have depth.
Shallow and deep. That's exactly what it kind of like. Coachella, you can take a sawed-off shotgun and hit a fan if you're playing Coachella.
Totally.
But like with Arise or with any of the festivals, it's very, hey, we know what we're going for. We know what we like. I mean, Sonic Bloom. If you know someone who is a bluegrass fan is not going to find themselves at Sonic Bloom.
Yep.
Someone who is a heavy dubstep is not going to find themselves down to Telluride Bluegrass Festival.
Right.
It's
me.
I mean, maybe. I mean, but it's.
I love bluegrass.
Oh, I've recently gotten into it. My girlfriend, she found Billy Strings a while.
Totally.
Like, we kind of got into Billy Strings, and so I went down that rabbit hole, and it's just impressive. I think that's at the end of the day the harmonies.
That's what got me into it.
Just how genuinely talented it is. Like that they are.
I call it acoustic metal.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You see some bluegrass breakdowns, and you're like, man, that dude's shredding. It's like I just heard the best.
Shredding.
You're like face melting guitar solo. You're like close mandolin. You're like,
yep. Exactly.
What?
Exactly.
It's awesome. I love it.
And I dance so hard to grassroots dude, it's just the best.
Yeah. So I mean, now like kind of going down that avenue. So like shows that have affected your life, as Spaceship Earth, as a performer. When did you feel that you had your first show that you're like, okay, I am a musician that is going to make a career as a musician?
I started getting some cool shows in like 2014. The end of 2014, I opened for the Floozies.
Nice.
And that kind of sparked like, oh, like maybe this. I was like on the bottom of like a 10-person lineup. I was like, it was like I opened at like 7. You know, it was just like the Floozies and like the people setting up paint. Like like the painters were setting up and the Floozies are like eating their food that they got for free. You know what I mean? It was like that gave me an insight into like that I had the potential. And then I opened for Caminanda, who's like connected to Kalia Scintilla and stuff, and Lansing, Michigan, and that like popped off. And yeah,
that's awesome. So you said Floozies, and then Caminanda was the second one you said?
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so now the best way to describe it, or the next question, the best kind of way to ask it is, what was your first show that hit different? That like you've played some shows, you've been gigging, you've been doing it, you've been hustling, you've been grinding, and you played that show that you're like, oh shit. Do you
I
know off the top of your
I
head?
opened for Desert Dwellers like 2 years ago, and I opened for Desert Dwellers and then the show with Minnesota. And I just remember I had this feeling like a quarter of the way through, like it felt really easy.
Mm.
Like I was having fun and people were just, I just play a song and everyone was dancing. Like it was like so many sets, like, I'm like, are people gonna move? Like, do they like it? But when I opened for Desert Dwellers, I think because it's similar vibe scenes too, like they were just so open to being awesome on the dance floor, and it just, I'll never forget that feeling of like, this isn't difficult. I don't
No.
know.
That's awesome, man. Desert Dwellers, we just watched their Arise Online New
Yes.
Year's Eve set, and ironically, Desert Dwellers was the first opener for Papadosio Sun Squabi at Red Rocks back in 2017.
Really?
Yeah, and like their fandom is a very very loyal group of people who just really want to listen to some good music.
Absolutely.
And they don't demand a lot, but they just want, if you can play some good music, their fans will definitely hype it up. So that's awesome.
For real.
Now this is one that what in your opinion was your worst show? That if you like, people sit there like, okay, think about everything you've done. That one that you're just like, oh God, yeah, I played it, because we've all done it. If you've been grinding for more than a week, you've played a show that you're
Yep.
like, ugh.
Oh man, it is like so visual in my memory too. I like in 2016 or 2017, I lived in Maryland in the Appalachian Mountains for a little bit, and I
Okay.
got booked. I got booked at this like 1 day music festival, and they made me the headliner. And I'm like, sweet, like okay, of course, like that sounds amazing. And I like they like I didn't drive at the time, so they had to come pick me up, and or I didn't have a car, but they came and picked me up, and we end up at like their mom's house, and it's like, yeah, the 1 day festival is at this high school's parents' house, and it's just like the whole thing is just a high school party. And
Oh
I'm like
no.
25, 26, and just like while I'm playing, like there's people like messing with the main mixer. Like there's this girl like shoving her phone into my ear with SoundCloud playing, being like, "Hey, can you play this song?" People asking me for drugs while I'm playing. I'm like, "This
Oh
is a
no.
high school party."
You're
Like
15. Please step away from me right now.
I had to
Wow.
use my guitar so they wouldn't like crowd me. It was crazy.
That's Yeah, that can go down as a pretty bad show for you. That's funny, man.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome to the show. Where is it? Oh, just in the backyard. What?
Oh.
Huh? Sweet. No, it's a sweet kegger. My mom and dad's out of town this weekend. You're like,
Literally, it was a kegger, and then a fight broke out over the keg.
oh man, high school, simple times, wasn't it?
Simpler times for sure.
That's okay. So now on the flip side, what's what's your favorite performance that you've done? Not one that hit different, not your first one, just the one that you're like,
Probably when I opened for Infected Mushroom, like
oh,
last,
nice.
is it almost 2 years now? It's like, I think it's 2 years now. It's funny. Like last year is such like nothing happened, but yeah, like January 2019, I opened for Infected Mushroom in Detroit, and it just like that was like when I was like, I can do music. Like, not that I couldn't before, and I opened for some cool people before that, but I was like, I can literally like have a career, and like people like me, and like I don't know, it was very surreal because it was a bigger venue, live. It was my first show with Live Nation. They like paid me in cash before I started my set. It was just like everything was so good. Like
That's I think for those listening, those who like the lay for the layman or anyone who's not involved in the performing arts, I don't think many people understand the self doubt that we go through on a regular basis.
right.
Of because it is art, and you are putting this honest version of yourself out there. Hopefully it's honest. I believe if you do anything honest in music, people will be drawn to it because it's true. But because you're being honest, because you're putting yourself out there, the last thing you want to do after a killer show is have like some kid in the audience be like, it was okay.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And whether that's one kid or 500 people in the audience, no matter what, and I feel this, maybe you feel this, where you're just like, they hate this, they hate this, they hate this.
Exactly.
Okay, they're dancing. Okay, but what if they're dancing, but they're dancing ironically because they don't
right.
want to feel like that's pity dancing right there. That's pity dancing.
Exactly.
And to get over, you can play a flawless show back to back to back to back to back, but still, for many, at least me, I know people that I've played with, where it's just like, man, what if they just think I'm full of shit?
Yep.
And that is like, whatever. That's like a cheap knockoff of so and so. And you're like, no, I'm organic.
Right, and it's like, I think after a while, it's like I've tapped into this feeling of like, it's like I've played enough bad shows and enough like dance floors. There's no one there. There's like 3 people at the show. It's like, in the end, like I started playing for myself and like really enjoying the show for me, regardless of what anyone else was enjoying, and like really like embodying the music and the performance almost as like a practice to like for those moments. And like I've had some small shows like there's like 3 people and like after the set they're like, wow, that was amazing, like I loved it. I'm like, really? Like I was gonna go home and cry.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exact, like, with especially COVID, I think there's a huge part of it's been kind of like redefining what a successful show is, where you're used to selling it. Like I need, for me, for a long time, I fed off the audience, man. You give me a wild crowd.
Exactly.
Like my performance is elevated by them. And now you're playing these shows where it's like 50 very dedicated people in the crowd, and you finish a killer song, and they're like, what? Thank you. We're like, hey, thanks, Steve. I appreciate you watching. This is fun.
Total different vibe.
But it's successful nonetheless. And those 3 fans who loved the show probably, or next time you're there, will probably tell their friends and hopefully bring out their friends to the next show. And you want, like, everyone wants to be famous, but no one wants to work for it. It's doing it's doing that grind until you. I mean, it's always doing that grind there until labels aren't here to push your stuff anymore. Like, that's not the industry that we exist in. It comes in fans, it comes in content, it comes in shows, it comes in tours, it comes in merch, and those don't come easy to anyone.
So true. And that's why, like, I feel like as artists, like, our mindset can be so crucial to help us navigate these worlds. Because for me, it's like, it's hard, and without some sort of like mental health practice, like I don't know how people navigate the music scene. It's like, it's ruthless. It's like, I feel like lucky to have some sort of, I don't know, I just like have a meditation practice. But
that's a huge, I mean, music is my meditation, thankfully.
Yep.
Like,
so true though.
Well, and it's, I mean, with computers, with any of it, the rabbit hole that you can go down, because all meditation is providing your frontal lobe with a mundane task so the rest of the brain can relax. So whether that's truly meditating, whether for like cleaning a gun, people do that as meditation, but for like,
right, it's like I liken it to like just the flow state. Mm-hmm. Like any athlete or can really understand what the flow state is. I think earlier, like, well, I grew up playing sports, and when I was younger, just playing basketball for me was my meditation. And it turned into guitar, and it's not so much like, to me, meditation isn't so much something that you do, but it's just like a shift of mind.
Mm-hmm. It's a cleanse. It's control alt delete. It's clear. Clear off the junk. There's a lot of static right now.
Clear the trash. Clear the recycle bin.
Exactly. So on the same kind of line, we've talked about a lot of the shows that we've performed in, but like, what's your if you had a favorite show that you've attended that you think had the biggest influence on you, like as a person, not as a musician, just as an individual, that you came out of that show and you're like, yep, I'm changed because of that. And it holds tier number one.
Man, it's like a few come to mind, but I'm gonna say a music festival. Such like a life-changing experience. Rootwire 2011 through 2013, those years. It was Papadozio's music festival in Ohio at the time.
Okay.
I had never seen like live painting, and like there was like spiritual teachers, health practitioners, singing bowl people, jam bands, producers, like almost like some jazz and some fusion and, like some acoustic stuff. And seeing that changed, I was like, oh, like, I don't know, like.
That's awesome, man. And that's,
yeah,
it's you can't really explain it unless you've been there. It's like
Yep.
a dream, where it's like I had the craziest weekend. Like, what was it? And you're like, well, I went and saw these singing bowls, and then there was this yoga class, and then
It's
there
so
was like
funny you say
fire.
that, because none of my friends got it, and then I had to bring them there the next year, and then we all got it, and it was. But then I also like want to give a shout out to when I saw Incubus in Michigan. It's just like this massive, outdoor venue. When I finally saw Incubus live, like it was probably the best concert, just like show I've ever seen.
That's
Just
awesome.
like it was one of my favorite bands growing up for many, like, a decade or so, and then to see them live and have them like kind of exceed expectations was like, what the power of music was like. I was like convinced.
That's awesome, man. Incubus is great. Incubus is awesome.
Yes.
So moving on, just so we're not here talking for the rest of eternity. So the fun part that we've all been dealing with, COVID. What happened? Like, what happened? What did you have going on? What did you lose? What did you have? You said you've been busy. Tell me a little bit about what you got going on with that.
Craziest year ever, right? For me,
Of the year.
God, what a crazy time. So I had like signed my first manager like 2 months before COVID, and we had planned like 50 shows, like a whole West Coast tour. We were working on an East Coast tour for the fall. We had like spring, summer, fall starting. It was like my career was starting essentially. And I had like moved to Colorado to find that, so I was really looking forward to all the tour. And every show got canceled. I did 2 small shows last year, just like social distance outdoor shows. But yeah, I just ended up at first it was like I was doing a lot of live streams, and then like protest season happened, and like I just kind of focused more on production and like finishing songs. And that's kind of where my head has been at since the summer, of just like focusing on getting like my online music thing going more, because I like COVID hit and I realized like some musicians didn't really lose their online income world, and all my income came from live shows. So this whole time I've been like marinating in like, how can I make my online bigger so that if this happens again, so that's been a big focus of mine, is like, how can I get like branding, marketing, online, social media game better.
I mean, good on you, man. Yeah, 50 shows.
Yeah.
I mean, and like, it sucked because it happened. Like the part was like, it happened to everyone. Imagine how that feels if you were, and you're like, yeah, it still sucks. It happened to me. This sucks for everyone, but it sucks that it happened to me too.
It really does.
So you have a new song that came out today. For those who are listening, we are recording this on January 29th. So check that out. It is on Spotify, Apple Music. Tell us a little bit about this track.
So the song's called Revolution. It was actually like it was going a certain direction, and then the protest hit, and all this stuff happened in I want to say like the spiritual community with all this QAnon stuff. So like that's like a whole other, like 5 podcasts. But like that stuff like kind of it like brought up a whole bunch of stuff in me, and I decided to change the message of the song.
Okay.
It went from like being about outer space and stuff to like being about like democratic sharing of resources and like respecting each other. And then like the intro is kind of about like how do we like navigate tough times. So all of the last year like really inspired like what happened to this song, which to me in the guitar part went from like mellow to really like distortion metal riff after the protest season.
That's it's not cool that the protest season happened.
Right.
But it's cool that you were able to take this darkness and apply it in a I mean, darkness or darkness shrouded in light, shrouded in darkness, shrouded in light, shrouded in darkness. Because with every adversity that came, we got to see we saw some dark sides of society, and we saw some really bright sides of society.
Exactly.
We saw people of all race, gender, age, like every faction of our society coming together to fight hate, to fight injustice, and it was upsetting to watch it happen, but kind of enlightening to see how it was responded to.
Totally.
And that's cool that you were able to kind of apply that and take a song from outer space.
Right.
Just like that whether you want to call it, and I like that whether it was topical at first, you're like, this is just something that would be fun, to turn it into something that had a lot more contemporary meaning, something that had a deeper meaning to it. So that's
exactly.
So congratulations on that, and that is Revolution on all streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, all that stuff.
Yep.
And by Spaceship Earth. So everyone, please go and check that out. And then you said you've been working on a ton of new music. Where can we see you next? Do you have anything coming up or anything lined up for 2021?
So I'm kind of like, in the waiting blocks with COVID, and like at the big I think I like caught it in the beginning of the spring. It was really bad for me too, so I'm kind of like overly cautious on a personal and a collective level. But I have like a live stream coming up February 3rd, so that will be like the day after this comes out, I guess, tomorrow.
Yes, yeah.
Technically tomorrow. If you're watching this now, but like next Wednesday. And so I'm gonna try to like curate some like more in-depth live streams in this winter and spring, and then like we'll see where it's at. Like last summer or last fall when I played my 2 events, like cases were down to like 20K and stuff, so I'm just kind of like, we'll see, and like I hope for the best. And my whole plan for this year is like not relying on live shows, and kind of like, if they come back, sweet, but if they don't, that's okay.
Yeah. An overabundance of caution never hurt anyone.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird thing, like, like I want to play a live show more than anyone else. And yeah, I hope, like, I can only hope that this new administration like helps COVID in America,
Yeah, and that's kind of I think everyone's kind of there. I think
right.
regardless of what the change is, I think we're ready for change. I don't think we're ready for change. I know we're ready for change, and hopefully we're able to grow through this, and we get vaccinations, and we're able to get to socially distant shows, and then we're going to be able to start getting to distant shows, and then we're able to have some 17-year-old shoving us to get to the front of the stage in no time.
Right. We'll get back. Like, I mean, to be honest, seeing Australia and New Zealand get back, like they had a festival in Taiwan, like we'll get back and it'll be bigger than ever. I'm so excited for when it comes back.
And when it does, I'm excited to see what it looks like because the cliche of 2020. Well, the Renaissance happened after the Black Plague.
Right.
Maybe it's a lot of creative people who have been stuck inside for a long time. So I'm excited
True.
to see what we can do. Well, hey man,
Me too.
I think we're gonna. I think that's a good time for us to kind of wind this down. But ladies and gentlemen, we have been speaking with Ashton from Spaceship Earth. If you have not checked him out, please do. I see you. I see you rocking that Spaceship Earth swag. Give us a little Superman really quick. Show us what you got. Awesome. Exactly, man. If you have not heard of him, please go check him out. Show some love on our social media, on Facebook, Instagram, on SoundCloud, or download his songs. Go follow his pages. Tell your friends about him. If you like psychedelic, outer worldly stuff, he is the dude for you. Ashton, thank you so much for taking some time and talking with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you, man.
This full interview is going to be uploaded to the Jamcast archives. Please, if you want to hear everything that we were able to talk about today, please tune in, and we will be back in 2 weeks. Thank you very much for watching Loop Storytime, and we will see you again. Talk to you later.